Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming today. What we wanted to talk about tonight is senior living, particularly some design trends and some other feature trends, things that are new in the market or emerging in the market. And, I'm coming in as the newbie to a lot of this information. So, I actually went through and looked into some of the trends and I'm sharing some of them with you. And then we've got our local experts. We've got Al and Wes on the call who will be kind of adding more detail as we go. So whether you're uninitiated and you know as much as I do, or you've been around the block a couple times, hopefully this will be valuable to you. But yeah, we'll kick off with a couple just quick disclaimers. One thing to keep in mind is we are recording and we make this available on YouTube. So if you share and ask any questions and you just don't want to be included in any way, just let me know. Just message me. I'll make sure to take care of that. But with the little bit of disclaimers out of the way, I wanted to share this. I wanted to kind of kick off with a statistic because I thought this sounds like a lot of people. I don't know. 10,000 people in the United States are hitting retirement age daily. I mean, that speaks to that baby boomer number for sure. And we were just talking about, Wes, you're on the cusp, right?
I guess so. In between, on the edge.
Yeah, on the edge. So, a little while maybe. But yeah, I don't know. That was a surprising number to me, but of course that speaks to that idea of demand increasing, right? You're hitting that kind of number. That means that there's a lot of people looking for senior living and options, downsizing or right sizing during retirement. So that's kind of, to set the stage. And then Gen Xers are actually, just speaking to Wes being on the cusp. Even if he was a Gen Xer, he missed it by a year, we think. They're reaching retirement age right now as well. The oldest Gen Xers are in their 60s, and they're going to also be weighing options for their retirement years. I
Right.
think I had a little slide on that, Al, too, if you want to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I just on the retirement pace, not only, retirement, you're thinking about like retirement homes, where people gonna like live in the future? Are they gonna downsize? Are they gonna rent? Are they gonna continue with their residence? But also think about it from the businesses side. Statistically, the baby boomers have the majority of the wealth in the US. So this is gonna be a unique I guess, phase where a lot of the wealth will be transferred in this process as well, whether it's businesses, ownership, whether it's succession planning for businesses, but also baby boomers enjoy that wealth that maybe is a little bit more scarce for the new generation. So the lifestyle of baby boomers retiring and the lifestyles of the Gen Xers retiring will likely look a little different than future generations. So that's also an opportunity beyond just retirement homes, but also for business and for sort of wealth transfer phase in this century or so, in this decade or so.
Yeah, some of the things I looked up talked about those changing technology needs that may come with, Gen Xers reaching retirement and looking for senior living options. So I thought that was really interesting. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess so. I guess that we are entering that time. But yeah, so today, this will be, as you can tell, a fairly informal talk, but we'll be covering some trends that we've seen in senior living, including niche communities, which I found very interesting, and then active senior living and what sets that apart from what you might think of when you think of senior living communities. And then design and tech elements that are in demand for these different demographics and some of the best places to retire, including in areas in Texas and Oklahoma where we look to invest. So it's kind of a high level what we'll be covering today.
Yeah, if you have any questions or any topics you'd like, I get a lot of questions on senior housing every time we mention that we're into this space right now. So if you have any questions or if you have any topics you'd like us to address or talk about, please feel free to share in the chat.
That's perfect. Some trends that we're seeing in senior living, like I mentioned, niche communities, which I'll talk about in more detail, and then this idea of a continuum of care. So having a house that can function for active senior living all the way, potentially through to memory care, being a place where you can stay as you age and have changing needs. Also, intergenerational living, so just housing where there are multiple generations living in the same place or, in close proximity. A lot of middle market alternatives, including, smaller houses as well as tiny homes. I actually found some like tiny home retirement communities as well. Um, Home-based services, so different, health services or other kinds of amenities that would go, people would visit your home and work with those services. Tech-aided personalization. So, depending on the kinds of services you're looking for, this would be in maybe a bigger community, having technology that would enable a personalized experience for the people living there. And then, of course, active senior living, which we're going to talk a lot more about today. But yeah, curious from both of your perspectives, any details you want to share on any of these larger trends?
Yeah, I mean, historically, if you think about the journey of home ownership, you have the starter home, the dream home, and everybody in the US should own a house, and the mortgage phenomenon, everybody is encouraged to buy a house starting in the 50s after the World War II. And so people bought their house, everybody owns a house, then we have a better living and we make more money and we build more wealth and we upgrade into the next house and the next house and the bigger house. And then eventually you'll have too much yard and too much house, and then you start downsizing. And historically, downsizing was into a smaller house that you still own, and then from there, it's kind of not clear how you're going to transition into maybe an assisted living facility or a memory care facility. And so it was kind of like segmented. Everybody followed that from a financial point of view, it made sense. But from a lifestyle point of view and from a services point of view, it felt isolated. Like the kids left the house, now we're living alone. Now we need to find the community again. I need to connect with the people. And then, this is where different priorities kicks in, when it comes to safety and traffic and avoiding parties and have a certain lifestyle and a slower lifestyle, etc. So it did feel segmented. The new trends try to connect that together, whether it's a continuum of care or continuum of living and lifestyle is what you see now. So whether it's a master plan that does have sort of starter homes, bigger homes with big yards, and 55 plus communities plus assisted living all in the same master plan. So you still live in the same neighborhood as you transition, or whether you actually do move and downsize into a rental facility is what we're seeing now. So instead of downsizing into another home with taxes and insurance and yard and maintenance, we started to see a lot more into I want to focus more on lifestyle, and that translates typically into more of rental communities and rental living more than ownership. So at a high level, that's a big major shift in the trends. That's not everywhere. We started to see people move into smaller towns, to your point. And we'll talk about the Oklahoma City phenomena and the Orlando phenomena as opposed to major cities. And then how aided by technology, aided by the new apps and the new services, how services are coming to the homes and to the living communities as opposed to people leaving their community into the grocery or the sport facility or what have you. So everything is coming back closer to the tenants. Wes, what do you see in generally in Oklahoma?
Well, you've really summarized it beautifully of the things we've been dealing with for the last 2 years and talking about. Probably some light bulbs came to my mind. For example, on the rental part of some of the seniors, they start renting smaller homes, smaller prototype, departing from that big house into a smaller house. Some of them are my tenants actually in my rental home portfolio here in Oklahoma City. Speaking of services coming to those communities, we've seen that and we feel that of our meetings and talking to people, whether brokers and builders and developers around me here in Oklahoma City. You see that need and think. One thing that really stands in my mind and biggest thing from the Gen Xers and the baby boomers, we're not so technology guys. We're not that tech savvy people. That's our generation. That's our life. Therefore, the social engagement, the social life that I get used to, and anybody and everybody who's older than me in that segment of baby boomers, basically senior Americans. We like to hang out together. We like to talk. I still like to see people in person. I don't like phone calls. I had so many phone calls in my previous life of being franchise operator of restaurant 24 hours. It got too much, but now I just feel so much much comfortable, so much in peace that I don't have those calls, late night calls and so on calls. You really get tired of it. So the social segment and social life of what we feel as a seniors and semi-retired people in confined retirement, as our CEO Al mentioned a while ago, you need that. And I think that need will attract those seniors to that lifestyle that we all got used to, our habit, our culture trends, previous life that we lived with, for me and my wife, for example, it was basic, a lot social. I feel even on my own life experience here in Oklahoma City, and when we moved to that, Alhamdulillah, when we moved to that big house, built this house probably 12 years ago, up in the wooded areas, which took my wife 20 years to convince her that we're gonna move in the boonies and there's no monsters here and we'll be all right. It's a city living, but in a country living in a city, within city limits, I should say. We loved it, and then we had a tradition every February when the weather start warming up in Oklahoma City and spring start coming up. I'll have a cookout for the whole family of me, myself. I'm talking just immediate brothers, sisters, nephews, and nieces. Nobody else. You're talking 70, 75. So you have to host them on this 1 acre land lot that I sit on and I enjoy, and I'm blessed with that. The socialization part element of it made me so comfortable, make us all have a good time, the cookout, get those bouncers outside, for the kids so they can bounce and play in the basketball court, sit in the backyard. We hang out with our brothers and sisters and men, let's say, and they sit in the patio, get our shishi, get our argili, get our argili, right? Is that what they call it? So they know what's the term, right, Al?
We don't endorse that stuff, but it's hookah
Yeah.
is what he's talking
This
about.
is
Yeah.
just, sit down, drink tea,
Relax.
smoke a cigarette, smoke your cigar. That's Dr. Bah's favorite thing nowadays, but he's just kind of puffing. My point is, this is the party we used to have every year. We feel good around it when you have socialization, certainly not from our age, family, friends. Another aspect you talked about is what we see in this senior housing you need to be gated. That community needs to be gated. And we see that trend of developer needs that they have more successful development, higher occupancy. Tenants like to like to see these things is gated community security. It feels good about it. What else? Some of the other things. Oh, regional areas. So Al mentioned the Orlando and the Oklahoma and North Texas. What I've seen in the last 2 years when we start looking at this senior housing development is one of the things that is upcoming. It's hot, it's needed, but it's still new to the U.S. market, mainly the Midwest, Florida area, Texas area, Arizona area, most of the warmer weather, most of the Bible Belt, like we say here around, which is all that regions in the southern U.S. because it's cheaper, warmer. You have more space. There's a bunch of land, lots of land here in the southwest region and the southeast region. Infrastructure is somehow friendly to develop those developments. It's pretty much, there's a lot of room to play with on those senior housing. Also, as a senior person, again, there's a lot we can talk about. I'm trying just to kind of catch up and focus on the main highlights of the senior needs, socialization, feeling secure, getting some of the services. For example, we talked to a group, a guy who's developed the Silent 55. They're doing a grocery ordering. We'll get you your grocery from grocery stores, Door Dashes and Uber Eats and everybody else is out there. You give me the list, I'll get you groceries for you. They feel good about that. When you're hanging out at the clubhouse with the other seniors that relates to the same age and culture that you guys connect, I think it gives them a feeling of really being home. The journey of myself and senior homes since the 50s after the Second World War, as Al mentioned earlier, that's true. I started with my small home. Alhamdulillah, we get bigger, we got more kids, looking for the bigger dream house. Now we're living it, we're enjoying it, we are blessed with it. Last week, I have 3 of my kids here, all of them grown up and married and kids. So I have 2 grandkids, 2 girls, another granddaughter from my other son, and Sally, who's probably is going to have one soon, hopefully, inshallah. So when you have this, that's my wife argument, right? Well, when the kids come home, what are we going to have them? We're going to have them all. We're going to have them all, got to feed them all, got to have breakfast, got to have special things to do. And she does that, and we still do that. She does the cooking part on doing homemade pies, homemade breakfast, brunches on Saturdays, on Sundays, and I got to do the steaks on Sunday night. That's a tradition for us. Every Sunday there's a cookout. Got to be at Daddy's house there. So this is the tradition we have. But now,
But listen to this. But he's saying, but. Yeah.
but yeah, now here's the scary part because my wife's gonna beat the heck out of me. She's been doing that for the last 2 years. I've been trying to sell the idea for Suad or for, hey, honey, we need to shrink down a little bit, Kids are grown up. We only have twins, 16-year-old twins here in the house, along with my 9-year-old mom, who has her own suite, and things have been changing for her, of course. I see there's a need that I need to shrink down. To me, as a baby boomer or Gen Xer, whatever you want to classify me with, we always look at the math. We always look at the budget. I'm a budget-driven person for the last 35 years plus. So now I look at it, what drives this decision and push this decision for me and for us, for me and my wife, actually is the property taxes increase. It's been going crazy post-COVID. The insurance rate post-COVID has been going crazy because of the suppliers, as you all know. So I'm paying a lot more tax and insurance on the same house that I enjoy and love and I built myself, but now it's cost me more money besides the utilities, besides cutting the yard and taking care of the lawnmower. I start getting tired of doing some of that work around it. But I still give my shrubs and my flowers, give them love every day, especially on Saturday or Sunday. Go talk to them, trim them up, weed some garden, the flower beds, clean it up a little bit here and there. I really love my plants. I connect to it. I used to have a 3 bay garden, just garden. I was crazy. I was loving it. Now I got two out. I left with one, and I can barely with the maintenance, keep up with the maintenance of it. But this is the transition that we are shifting down. I am big believer, and I'm gonna do it, inshallah, with God's will. Is we're gonna shrink down for budget wise, math wise, waste of resources that you don't need, and we'll see our kids. We'll find other ways. There's a bunch of hotels around us, a bunch of Airbnb around us. They can do that, and we can be together. So we're shifting into that model.
Amazing, Wes.
Yeah,
One
that's
thing that we've done early on as we were kind of looking into this segment and researching it, and Sammy's R&D about it, and talking to brokers, and mainly talking to tenants. Like we really had a couple of focus groups, and we're continuing to have focus group talking about this because, like, Wes and I were talking to a banker, and he told us how much in love he is in the community he just moved to. And he said, "Hey, listen, I'm not that old. I'm very active." I think he was like 57 or 58. And
Yeah.
he told us about his community. So Wes and I took note and immediately drove to that community. It did have
You
an
know,
Italian restaurant. I thought that was over the top. But we started talking to the seniors, and we started asking, "What are you looking for? What are you looking for? What are you looking for?" And everything that Wes talked about. They still want the garden, but not take care of the yard. They
yeah,
want to have the car garage. They didn't want to shrink too much. They still wanted to have a big gathering place, intimate setting where every neighbor knows their neighbor and talk to. No parties, no young people. Like my parents moved to a 55 plus community, and the HOA seems to be enforced. The only thing they didn't enforce was the ability to rent your place. So some of the seniors ended up renting their places, and we had young people. They're all great. Nobody's causing any trouble. But I can see my parents getting anxious about, like, did you see the new neighbor? They don't
yeah.
look senior, they don't look senior. Did they park on the street? They shouldn't park on the street. All that conversation matters. And so when we started looking into who's supplying these needs, the surprise to us, especially in the Midwest, that the supply is very, very low. Most of
Nada.
these communities were on waiting list. I was shocked. I thought like the Arizona vibe and the Miami vibe and the Fort Lauderdale vibe would already have penetrated into the Midwest, but it hasn't. So it was a light bulb that we need to take care of the seniors. This is a very high demand, low supply segment, and baby boomers are retiring in 10,000 a day, and Gen Xers are coming along. So it feels like there's an opportunity that's probably going to be a 10-year plus opportunity that we're looking into. So we got super excited about that, but we
Yeah.
also got super excited about how to design them well. So they're not like a vanilla downsize into a smaller square footage because you just want to take care of the finance. Is what are those things that are people looking for that are not available in a standard community, standard gated community, right? So this is where the home services started to show up. This is the intergenerational living. Like, I don't want to live in the woods anymore. I want it to be sort of maybe in the suburbs, but not deep outside the city. Be close to hospitals and medical offices and
Services. Yeah.
churches. I don't want to live far, but I don't want to be also in Midtown. I want to stay away from crime and noise. but I want my kids to be around me and I want them to visit and I want to have an extra room. So we were thinking like all one bedroom or one and a half bedroom, but we were surprised. It's two
Mhm.
plus, and we want to have the car garage and we want the car porch and we want all of these things just in case they visit. But we don't want the yard, so it doesn't matter if we have a yard or not, as long as there's like a common garden, for example. So a lot of these things that we started learning as we were modeling what we want to build and got us really excited that we can serve with a unique opportunity to serve, but also this is undersupplied and there's value in this beyond just what InvestStream can do. This is how we started digging deeper, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. One point relates to what you just said. When I developed the Bella Terra, I learned the tenants. I was hoping, I was targeting the college kids because I was close around OCCC, Oklahoma City Community College. But what I learned in that experience after a year and a half, the worst tenants are the college kids. The worst tenants because parties, abusive, etc. Best
We don't
tenants are the senior
endorse this,
people.
but
Sorry to say that, but it's real fact. So it took me into another thinking, if I'm gonna do another development, I want to gonna do it in Norman around OU. But I also learned, it's me. I start digging things and digging things. So I start going to Norman and see the new development, what they're doing, and pick their brain, get the broker, get the developer, get the owner. Why are you doing this? So they're building fancier housing for the students. But guess what? Mom and dad is on the lease. I said, aha. Well, that's where we started our conceptual thing. And as we said, instead of one bedroom, no, it's a two bedroom. And the thing that they like to see is a nice higher end finish, by the way, because they have the money. It's a middle class. Most of the baby boomers, like we said, on the financial aspect of them. So they're willing to spend money.
it beats Class A plus. This
It
is
beats
not
Class A
assisted living.
plus.
There's no
Wow.
nursing, no care services, and it's definitely better than Class A plus in the city, full of amenities. So what we learned is amenities matter. We will take care of amenities. People look for the amenities. But what matters more is the activities. And we're even like Amber and I were talking about like how do we make sure that we treat this like as an activity center, as an event center, not as a call it a clubhouse only, because people are looking to
Right.
to have as much activity as possible within the community instead of leaving somewhere else. But speaking of this, a
Yeah.
good segue to the niche community. Some people took it to the extreme. We're watching what they're doing.
Mhm.
It's fun. I mean, you can do a lot of niche. We're not deciding to do niche necessarily, but we're kind of learning and seeing what's happening in the nation on what historically has been retirement places or cities. We're learning from Europe too. They've done retirement a lot better than we've done in the US. So Sammy, tell us a
Yeah.
little about what you found.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was really interesting. And with everything you were both talking about, it just made me think of, I mean, my grandfather is part of the silent generation. He's lived in the same house for over 70 years. Isn't that wild? I mean, that's just not the kind of thing you see anymore. He built it right after World War II from like one room, and they had no electric, no water, nothing, and that's where my grandma started her garden and did it ever since. Anyway, made me think of that. But I've been trying to find like photos for this presentation, other presentations, and Al keeps going, no, that's not right. That's not right. Because there isn't a lot stock photo wise out there because this is so new. So that was really interesting for me to just see, oh yeah, if you're gonna find pictures of niche living communities, things like that, or senior living communities, niche communities you can find more easily general photos than the kind of the average active senior living that we'll talk about in the future slide. But these are really interesting. There's more than this. I actually cut the list down, but there's ones for Disney fans. So there's a story living community. There's actually a few story living communities. A couple of them there are wait lists. I think there's maybe one that started by now. There's some Jimmy Buffett communities, Latitude Margaritaville communities. There's some artist colonies and ones for astronomy fans, and even one for mail carriers. How specific can you get? That's like the nichest of the niche. Like, and they don't allow dogs in their neighborhood.
Wow.
You know, because mail carriers,
Cool.
yeah, they get chased. Um, and then these I also found really interesting. There's a few different university-based retirement communities as well. So, you know, at a lot of universities, seniors can audit classes for free. So these place the seniors really in close proximity to those universities. One example that I found was this Kendall at Oberlin. So this is a picture of part of Oberlin's campus. But yeah, these are senior living communities like on steroids, just absolutely beyond. But they were really fun to look up.
You know what we learned too is like we can bring some of this vibe again to the community. We'll go hire the best yoga instructor and do some aqua training and bring a lot of these sort of unique and maybe a little more extreme events into maybe one day a year, maybe twice a year, where we do like, you know, a painting workshop or a cycling, you know, training or, you
They
know,
do gardening in at Highland 55, gardening, literally.
right. You got the gardening thing going, fishing pond. So like you can start bringing some of these elements either permanently or as an activity to the community, wine tasting, catering
Mhm.
every weekend. There's a lot that can be done, even if it's not like a permanent setup, like where you don't have like Disney themed community. You can maybe do a Disney themed clubhouse twice a year, you know what I mean? So we're started to see the importance of creating an event center and a mega clubhouse to host these things and to allow
Yeah.
them to have indoor outdoor activity.
Looks like Hanny might have a question.
My in-laws actually are in one such community. They call it 55 plus independent living community. It's a fairly large one, actually. So I have quite a bit of experience there. I think, as you just pointed out, Al, the programming matters a lot. So, for example, in that particular place, the vicinity to amenities matters. So that particular one is quite close to a mall, and so they have buses that run on certain schedules, so that the seniors can ride to the mall, a couple of times a week, and so on. Of course, delivery of groceries and that sort of thing. But the programming, meaning, for example, that particular place, I think at least once weekly they have kind of a band that comes in and sings good oldie songs and that sort of thing, and the seniors all gather there. And by the way, this is quite a large range of ages, from 55 to I think they have 105. There's several World War I veterans in there, and importantly for that age group, stimulation is important. So these activities, including, by the way, they have some on-site physio therapy instructor. I mean, they don't work full time, but they hold classes there every day. Every week there's a schedule published with all the activities. So every day is full of different activities: sewing, aerobics, tai chi, I don't know what. They also have a few amenities on site, like, for example, a hairdresser. Because it turns out that's something that, generally speaking, is important for seniors, and they don't really like to go out just to go to that. So they can book it right downstairs. Things like this make a really big difference. But the stimulation part is they need to be part of a community, interact over breakfasts and meals together. Because otherwise, what happens is you get very rapid cognitive decline, dementia and other things start to set in because there's lack of stimulation, intellectual stimulation in particular. And so I just wanted to share that. Done right, I envision myself wanting to live in something like this in some years. Living in a big house by yourself, if all your kids have moved out, just doesn't make a lot of sense. And then, of course, there's the gardening you mentioned. There's all just the general common amenities that everybody can participate in. It's a lot more efficient way of living anyway. And importantly, because God forbid, there's death in the family or something, because of the large concentration of seniors that tend to live in these places, the emergency services, and the other services are very used to accessing those places. So they can show up, for example, in less than 5 minutes. I mean, I'm speaking from experience, right? So sometimes you want to go back and forth to hospitals and all that. It's just a lot more efficient doing it from a place like that than trying to do it from a home inside a gated community, for example. All right. So those are just some things to bear in mind. Why this way of living just makes a lot of sense when you get older.
Thank you, Hani. Such great points, and I think we're going to hire you as a consultant on our next project. A lot of great points. Thank you so much. You brought in another thing that I didn't touch on, which is, this might sound controversial, but I'll say it anyway. When you go into this mega structure, because I've seen a lot of developers, they do this continuum of care, but they do it in a very dry and cold way. You have this mega hotel looking building with elevators. It feels like a hospital, right? It doesn't feel like a community. You may have the big gathering place, you may have a lot of nurses, you may have a lot of care, but it does feel like a hospital. And the interaction happens between the tenant and the nurse as opposed to the tenant and the neighbor. And so it might be specialized care. It might be, maybe for the children of the elders is a good place of retirement, but cognitively and socially, it's not set up in the best manner. That's why you see what started as active living, which was supposed to be in theory 55 to say, call it 70 plus, has becoming more and more the new norm. And that's what I love about what you said here, Sami, what it can be, because it's still evolving. Active doesn't mean a certain age group. Active means active. It means connected. It means socially active. It means cognitively active, community active, not just physically active. And I think this is something that I'm really advocating for, of this active senior living can be the place that people can enjoy. And we may have different sizes of units that can evolve into their journey, but it doesn't need to be the good old boring hospital looking facility that everybody don't want to send their parents or their elders to. And so this is kind of why I'm really having a lot of design conversations with seniors, and being and having startups in my career, I thought real estate is going to be just basic boxes, and you follow density requirements, and you follow land cost requirements, and maybe location. But I'm really super excited to actually tailor it down to what Hani talked about. Is that programming? Is that activity? And yeah, let's push it to 100 plus type of living, but it stays in the active category, not in the hospital looking category. So I had to rant here, but I felt like I feel really passionately about it.
Yeah, it's a good time though. It's the perfect slide for it. So you did that on purpose, I know. Um, but okay, so has anybody watched the TV show Man on the Inside? Are you familiar with that? It was a Netflix show with Ted Danson. Anyway, it just came out like, I don't know, in the last year or something like that. But he's in a senior living community that also includes memory care. I just watched it a couple months ago, and so it was like the perfect time to do this presentation because that was top of mind for me. But he lives in kind of what you're describing. It's like a big complex, everyone's got their own apartment and there's a separate memory care wing. And when we're talking about active senior living, that's not really what we're talking about with this type of senior living. So that continuum of care, the memory care, the assisted living, is like a separate thing. But when I put it all in what it could be is because it is taking shape right now. Like looked at the niche communities. There's all of these different ways that it could take shape. It could be single family, it could be duplex, it could be intergenerational. The amenities are going to vary based on who's there and what they value. Like you were saying, Al, asking the community what is the most important to them and what they want to see is really important. Is there a community garden? Is there communal space? Is there pickleball? Those kinds of things. With tech, also, are there, the personalization is there. And then also we'll talk a little bit about the tech and amenities on the next slide as well. And then I had mentioned before those middle market alternatives. So, maybe some are looking to downsize, maybe some are looking to downsize and add, some extra features in their homes and maybe, we talked about like right sizing over downsizing is really the important thing to think about here.
That's
Yeah,
true.
Wes and I talked about this with the brokers and private equity groups recipe. They said you need to be 100 plus units, 120 plus units, because they're following the BTR model, which is not this again. And we're like, no, how about 50 to 70 units? So we can have all the neighbors know each other instead of living in this massive community. I mean, in Houston, I live in the Bridgeland area. It's a whole city. That master plan is a whole city.
Yeah, big
I mean,
city.
it doesn't make sense. So you'll go back to living alone, and maybe you'll interact with the property manager and maybe your immediate neighbor. And that's not the intent. The intent is to actually have them live together and close to each other and have that feeling that Wes talked about.
See,
That
the key word here is cozy. When I see of those 60, 70 unit, the feeling of cozy, of that conceptual design that we have currently came and derived from, we had to hunt one of the owners, and me and Al went up in the boonies and we met him up in his luxury barn. Luxury barn. You imagine that the way you want to imagine. But he's done a wonderful job. The guy is just kind of designer and creative. What I see in the Midwest, in the South, rather than, like you said, Al and Hani, not like institutional size. We have 2-3 development, by the way, in Yukon. They did 4 or 5 story, 100 unit, 90, 100 unit. They stack them up 4 story. I know the occupancy is probably around 30-40% max. They've been about 4 or 5 years. Versus the other ground floor garden style, cozy feeling units with a patio up front and a backyard patio, small patio, just me and you, me and my wife sitting and chilling on our rocker seat. This is the feeling that I love to feel. This is what I see. Most of those properties are 100% occupied and they have a waiting list. Why? It's the different that I'm going home in a small little bit home that is cozy, but it gives me that feeling of home. Don't take me in the elevator on the 4th floor. I don't like myself. I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for the ground floor garden feeling, the little house. That's what I think this niche you bring. And it wouldn't have to be sophisticated. It's just the services that you provide. And this model will be evolving as you're gonna see more of it coming up online. And we will learn, we will adapt, and we will provide of upcoming developments that I feel excited about. I don't go anywhere, man. I just go around, just stay in the Midwest market, because there's probably none, very, very minimal built. So there's a big potential for us to penetrate the Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas, Alabama, etc. I know Kansas City market, Kansas and Missouri. We operated restaurants there for 15 years. They're pretty much like Oklahoma.
Yeah.
A little bit more improved economy since they have more industries. But those folks, the Okies, the Kansas, the Missouri, the Arkansas, I think that's what they like this model. They like this feeling.
And we're not giving up on Texas. You're just moving away from the
Yeah.
noise and the busy places, because as the city is growing, you know, for example, being in Rosenberg used to feel like you're way out there. Now it's like, yeah, it's part of the city. Being in Montgomery County used to be like, I just want to leave. And now it's like almost suburb. So like you can now have these smaller towns around the bigger cities. I know Dallas is creeping up on Sherman, for example. So that's how crazy Dallas is. But you can still be within, call it 30 minutes from the city and have this sort of Midwest feeling, even with the growth in Texas.
I can share one quick fact. I keep saying it. Post-COVID, the Midwest became on the national map simply because there's a lot of movers that moved, mainly the West Coast. We have a lot of people in California, Seattle, Idaho, even parts of Arizona coming to Oklahoma City. In my some of the meetups I used to go to, real estate and other ones. Where are you coming from? Where are you coming from? You know, I remember most of the stories. He said, I sold my little old dump in LA or in San Jose for $1 million. And he's a remote worker, mainly IT guys. And he moved to Oklahoma City during the COVID, just right after COVID. And he said, man, I just spent $500,000 and I have a half an acre house, 4,000 square feet with a pool, with all the amenities that I could never have in Cali. And I still have some money. Some of the smart guys or the other ones who had some investment mentality. He said, on top of it, I bought me a house or 2 rental homes. So I get investment out of that $1 million when I moved here. $1 million in Cali is just, you know, a small house, guys. We're not talking a rich guy. This is just an average Cali working. And there was tens of them moving up here. And we saw that in the market, in the sales, and in other industries that I deal with other people in Oklahoma City. So people like in the Midwest area, the Midwest region, for a lot of reasons. We're not crowded. Transportation is cool, is accessible. Logistics is reasonable. Cost of living is great. Bunch, you know, plenty of room to grow. Not much competition. Traffic is easy, and on and on and on.
Yeah. One thing to add really quick, and I see Omar, you have a question. Before I lose my thought, what's interesting, when you dig deep into like what we're talking about, they do exist, but they're just not affordable. They existed on the beach in California. They existed in Fort Lauderdale. They exist in Tampa, Florida. They exist in New Jersey and Jersey City. They exist. There just happen to be historically an elitist approach. And what we're trying to change in the Midwest is make it an affordable, still high rich in activity and community focused, but still affordable. So sort of like bringing the good ideas of what has been an elitist approach into a more affordable everyday retiree approach. Omar?
Yeah, thanks for sharing this topic. Very interesting, though. I have a question. I'm curious to know if you have any analysis or any studies of specific communities. Let's say, take for example the Arab community in the United States, where they will have like a senior living specific requirement that might be different from other general communities. And we don't see any, let's say, any example of these for these kind of type of communities right now. So I'm curious to know if you have looked into this, if you have any thoughts about that, how to address this need for this specific community.
Great question. I don't think that I've seen any Arab or Arab examples. I did see a couple of Desi communities and couple of Vietnamese communities and Korean communities. So I've seen some ethnically focused communities, especially for first-generation immigrants, where their primary language isn't English and they would like to speak their mother tongue and socialize with the people they normally mingle with. I wouldn't say we've done studies, but I've seen Desi examples and some Asian communities examples before. Yes.
Can I comment?
Go ahead.
This idea came to me 8 years ago, Omar, when I used to I was a vice chairman of Mercy School here in Oklahoma City and co-founder of Mercy School. We're about 21 years old. One nice brother, doctor, actually a physician, donated 40 acres for us. So we built on the first 5. We used the other 2. Recently, we just opened up another gym. So my own thinking I did another master plan for the community. And let's say for the Muslim community needs, I said, okay, we have another 20 acres, we can create some housing. So I did some initial conceptual master plan of BTRs, duplexes, single family homes. And I had a daycare by itself next to the school, because in our school and any other school, the most populated population and kids are the pre-care. There's a lot of them. There's always a waiting list, right? And I also proposed a senior housing for Muslims. So why Muslims? Let's say on ethnicity or religious needs, we can provide, I start doing things on my own. I really want to do more of this, and still on my board to discuss and find more needs for whether the Vietnamese, the Latinos, the DCs, and the others. It's very, what I think we'll need to have is provide some of the cultural needs for those seniors. So in a typical, for example, in a Muslim model, I had a prayer house, we had a cafeteria, halal food, some transportation, people who can serve those senior people and accommodate whatever is needed for that culture. And you can customize that culture needs as you need. I think, and I guarantee you, there will be a lot more needs for those cultural groups. And guess what? All of them is upper middle class, if not rich. So I know in our community,
Yeah, I totally agree with
tenant,
you.
huh?
Yeah, I totally agree with you with this, because I spoke to a lot of people that are interested in these models, and they don't have
Absolutely.
that.
Yes. So
What's interesting on Wes's point, what I've seen so far, they're all apartment looking. So they got the idea, but they build them as apartment
housing.
Yeah, they still look for density and rent,
Yes.
and they still go with the financial model first, as opposed to what Sami loves to do, is the heart of design and making sure that we take care of the needs first and the money will come, as opposed to just the Wall Street version, which is like density, rent, density, rent, density, rent.
What I was saying. Oh, on this model, by the way, Omar, and for everybody else in the room here. So some of all of the board members, they were looking at me, what the heck you're talking about, man? We as Muslims, or cultural thing, I'm going to keep my mom and my dad, they live with me. They're not going to go assisted living. I am one of them. I'm not, I don't, my mom and dad still live with me. My mom, we lost our dad. My mom's still with me. She's almost 90. It's kind of crazy and unacceptable to have mom to live by herself. But later on, 2-3 years down the road, when we meet with the board of trustees, the same doctor was looking at me. He's about 85, Dr. Yassin. Allah knows him. He said, you know what? Yeah, we think we need to have a senior housing for Muslims. Whoa, coming from Dr. Yassin? Man. So it kind of gave me another bigger light bulb. And here is why. There's a lot of Muslim elderly couples, they don't have family here. So it's unlike, with all love and respect to everybody, it's unlike others who has, kids, relatives, etc. So for him, he's alone, him and his wife basically living in Gaillardia, Nicholas Hills, which is the Oklahoma City Beverly Hills area. High-end area, beautiful, nice big house. But he's tired of that. He wants to be in a senior house so he can mingle around with other physicians, other friends, etc. I said, man, so we need to provide that idea. So if ethnically, the good news is financially, I think that you'll have those tenants. They can afford such housing, such and whatever you do on that senior housing, very likely they will be comfortable to afford to live in that vicinities.
Thank you, Wes. Thanks, Ahmad. I mean, we're gonna wrap up. We're already beyond 8, but very good conversation. So appreciate everybody's input. We already kind of touched on the Midwest and why we like, and this sounds like Houston 54 in the nation, but we're talking about inclusive of all the little towns and sort of small to medium towns and bigger cities. So this number may seem high, but it's actually very low. Oklahoma is very, very low, which is very exciting for us.
Wow, that's good.
People are fleeing Dallas to Oklahoma, kind of thing, because it's just
Come on home.
how much crowd has been moving to Texas recently. But still, Texas and Oklahoma are great. Wes touched on Arkansas, Missouri, Kansas, Louisiana, Alabama, all that area. Even the Panhandle in Florida has been seeing a boom into senior communities. So just a little bit more about Oklahoma. We kind of touched on that. So I would say that's the end of our presentation, really. But if anyone has any questions or comments, this is a place that we love, that we care about, that we feel passionate about, and it's also good for business. So it's kind of like hitting all the notes of what we're set to do. And we believe there's 10 years plus of supply to be delivered. This needs to be custom built. This cannot be, let's buy a hotel and renovate into an apartment. This cannot be an apartment and a fake big clubhouse. No, it has to be custom built. So most of what we're going to be working on is going to be development from the ground up, tailored to the market, tailored to the needs. And we still believe that the private equity groups will end up buying us, and the investors are still going to be flocking to this. So we're not worried about the early indications that are coming from Wall Street that it needs to still be massive, it still need to be cold, and that's what we're excited about. I see a developer who just developed one next to my house with 360 units. And I'm
Wow.
like, And they built them vertically with an elevator. I'm like, in Houston, you're gonna use an elevator in Cypress, like in the suburb? No, doesn't make sense. So it just shows that some developers are still following the good old formula.
That would work in Chicago.
Appreciate everybody joining us, and we'll be posting this on our YouTube channel, and you'll hear more from us on our exciting new projects coming in the pipeline in this segment.
Yes,
Have a
perfect.
great evening, everyone.
Thanks all.
Good evening.